Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got good friends with me, Mike Lemp, Tim Hammett. How we doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pretty great. It's great to be here with you guys.
It's awesome. We've been trying to get this done for a while. Our schedules were a little busy.
It's been a little hectic, but now we are here together.
Well, I normally start every podcast with one question: is what has helped make you the man you are today? But we're 2026. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to start asking a question to our listeners, and the question I'm going to ask is: this whole podcast today is going to be about personal growth, self-development, kind of betting on yourself, investing in yourself, coaching, consulting, all that kind of stuff. And so my question is for the listeners: Does Michael Jordan, did he have a basketball coach? The answer is yes. Did Tiger Woods have a golf coach? Yes. Did Michael Phelps have a coach? Yes. Did Tom Brady have a coach? Yes. Right? So you can see where this goes. The question for the listeners: do you have a coach? And so whatever that answer is, today we're going to spend a lot of time on why we invest in ourselves. And then I will turn it over to Mike and to Tim and help them understand what their relationship is like, how you guys go back, but also what helped you become the man that you are today. Mike, why don't we start with you, buddy?
All right. Well, that's a great question. It's a great intro to this, and I'm just excited to be with you two guys. I think one of the keys of life is just surrounding yourself with people that are better than yourself, and you share those values and things like that. So it's an honor to be here with you guys, truly. But to answer that question, for me, it's pretty simple. And I think a lot of people can probably use this answer, and it's not just a standard answer, but in order for me to start any conversations really with my parents, like as far as the parents that I was blessed with, I mean, my parents were Hall of Fame parents. And I think anything that I will ever accomplish or ever do in my life will really be because of the mom and the dad that I have. They were just
That's awesome.
Hall of Fame parents. My mom is still alive today, and Tim knows my mom very well, and she is one of the most loving, supportive, inspiring people. She's so gracious, so loving, but yet on the other hand, she's tough as nails. And my dad, he passed away when he was 50. But again, he was the greatest dad. In terms of, I'm a baseball guy, so in terms of, I put things in sports analogies a lot of times. And as far as being a dad, maybe my dad didn't pitch a perfect game, but it was definitely a no-hitter and probably
awesome.
Multiple no-hitters. So I look at just my parents and just with extreme gratitude to everything that I have accomplished or will accomplish will really go back to my mom and dad and the way they raised me and set that foundation and set me up for success.
Very good. Tim, what about you?
That's a great question. I think there's been a whole series of people that have affected me and impacted me my whole life. Like Mike, my parents were integral really to a set of values as a child. And then as I aged, there were key friends that had come into my life. Key mentors, key consultants. But you're right, it's the people you surround yourself with. And it's just been a whole series of different people. So I don't know. I would have to say, as a young man, there were a group of friends I associated with, grade school, high school, college. I still have a group of friends that were my best friends today that I met back in kindergarten. 5 years old. There's a group of friends I had in high school, still best friends today, and then even in college, and then obviously my relationship with both of you two. I met Mike through my wife, went to college with Mike and his now wife, Christy. And that relationship has just grown over the last 27 years, really.
Wow.
So I just have to say a whole group of people, whole series of people.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this later too, but don't you think the values connection, I mean, obviously that's very obvious, right? But the values connection, and Tim's smiling because he loves to talk about that.
Yeah.
I've got a question, trust me, for him later. But I think that connection, right? It's like you just, it's like, I always say it's like a magnet. And I can't remember, my oldest was probably 6 or 7 years old, and we were playing with their trains in his room. And you remember the old school trains, and the magnet either attracted or repelled, right?
That's right.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks doing that. It was like, man, that's like, your relationships. It's like your values, your vision, your mission. It's either going to attract people or it's going to repel people, right? And I think that's, if you're conscious of that, those are the good things that happen and what we get from our relationships. So, again, we're going to talk about, personal growth, mindset, all that stuff. But do you have anything that, maybe in 2025, as we move into 2026 here, that it's a belief that you changed in the last 12 months that helped you achieve a future greater than your past?
Well, you ask good questions.
He does ask some pretty
good questions.
Thought-provoking questions.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I would say one for me is to be in the present. There's so much change in life. And, I can constantly be thinking of future goals. Obviously, I have a growth mindset. But at the same time, with family, I was so fortunate. I have a new grandchild that was just born literally just a few weeks ago. And so holding that new grandbaby, Lewis is his name.
That's awesome.
And, when you're with the child, everything stops.
Yeah.
And life just slows down. So I think for a future greater than my past, being present to enjoy these moments today and to really focus on what's important. And that does allow me, I think, to have greater clarity of what I'm seeking in the future.
Yeah. I think for me, and I'm one of these guys where I like safety, I like security, I like comfort. Like if you looked at a line graph of my life, it kind of looked like this. It would just kind of go,
pretty steady.
Pretty steady, which is great, right? And I've been able to do lots of great things with that steady attitude. But recently, and I've said something to Tim a couple months ago about this, like. I've been trying to be more risky, if that makes sense, where it's like really do some things professionally, personally, that I think probably God has called me to do for a long time, but maybe just I haven't been, I've just tried to play it safe. And, Tim and I share a birthday, and it was just on Monday. And I think to myself, on my birthday, like I just turned 53, right? Young guy, got a lot left.
A lot younger than
And I just referenced my dad passed away at 50. And now in these past few years, the overwhelming thought I have when I have that birthday is these are literally days in my life that my dad never saw, right? He never saw 51, 52, 53. And I don't look at that as a negative on my life. I look at it as something that's motivating and inspiring.
Heck yeah.
As if you had the hourglass of life and the sand was ticking down, so to speak, and running through that small funnel. Like my sand, it's getting smaller. Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of sand left. So what am I going to do with the rest of my life so that I can achieve whatever on this earth I'm supposed to achieve and go back to the foundation? I still do things today to make my mom and dad proud, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all do. Yeah. And how can I do that for myself?
It's that first call you want to make,
Yeah,
right?
That's right. It is, and it still is, right?
Yeah.
How can I do that for myself, and how can I help others achieve that same type of life and a future that's greater than their past?
Yeah. Makes me think about, I call it your comfort zone callus. It's, if your comfort zone was this big, your steady Eddie you talked about, right? And it's like if you just step out of that comfort zone just a little bit, right, you're going to get a little bit bigger.
That's right.
A little bit bigger, right? And if you don't, you get the callus, right? And you don't break through it. So
I'll reference one comment on that about the hourglass and how much time we have left. One of my best buddies, again, Eric, best friend since 5 years old. We talk about this all the time, that, if you think if most people live to maybe 80, 85, 90, we might have maybe, if we're lucky, 25 or 30 more years, potentially. Right. And so if you had to think about it to say, well, if you only had, 25 more summers to go on vacation.
That's right.
If you only had 25 more Christmases, right?
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not. And there's a graph that'll show if every year is represented for one dot, of your life. Yeah. And they'll say, where are you on the graph? And not a lot left.
Yeah.
I see that on social media, and I just scroll right through it because it makes me sad. I'm like, damn it. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, Mike, talk about why. So I think you invest in yourself, you work on yourself, right? Why is that so important? Maybe, and talk to that man or woman driving down the road right now that is not working with a coach or working on themselves. Why is that so important to do that?
I think it's super important. I think it goes back to what you started off this conversation when you talked about all these high level athletes. and they have these coaches, right? And if you look at like all those high level athletes, or it's like, dancers or singers or musicians, when they're young, they invest in themselves and they get the highest level coach they can.
Yeah.
And then when we get out of whatever that, kind of for most of us, those things are hobbies.
Yeah.
When we get into real life, which is really the important thing, we don't have a coach, and we don't have somebody to be there beside us to walk us through there. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy trying to help people see that, man, they have a future, like you always said, that is great in your past, but you have to invest in it. It's just as I talked about my mom and dad and how loving and supportive they were. Now, there was also a level of accountability and discipline that came with that. And I think there's lots of people out there that they don't even realize the future that they can have, and it's just because they just don't see it, and they don't know what that can be. And I think one of the things that I love to do is just help people see that and to discover who they really are in life and try to take some inroads into to accomplishing that.
I would say ADT, it's ask, don't tell. And I think when maybe you're stuck, and maybe it doesn't mean you're not successful. You can be super successful and still have a coach, right?
That's right.
And so I think it's asking great questions to remove the blinders away from people, to let them go, right?
Yeah.
And I think, Tim, I know your story. You had a guy, back when you really couldn't even afford a coach. And I know I was the same way. In 2007, I hired my first coach, and I couldn't afford that person, but it was one of the best things I ever did. So talk about that relationship, and maybe if you're open, sharing the percentages even of your income that you were investing in this consultant, Ted, that we talk about,
all the time.
and what that looks like.
Yeah, so it was, 5 years into my career, and I wanted to have a career change, basically to have a different focus on, the work that I was doing. I hired this coach and a mentor, and, at that time, it was probably 35% of my income that I had to pay this person. I'm a young professional, not making any money at all, really.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of clients, a lot of customers. We're in the wealth management business. But I wanted change so bad, right? I didn't like the situation where I was at in my life at that time. And one of the biggest impacts that this coach had made on me is we needed to define my core values.
Yeah.
And it was not an easy process. It probably took over 2 years to refine that and to narrow down what were my true core values: trust, respect, humility. One integral part in that relationship with Ted was respect. I was seeking respect in my relationships. And so Ted asked me, it was a very profound question. He said, do you respect yourself? And at that time, there were significant things I needed to work on and change in my personal, my professional life. And I said, no, I don't think I do. And so Ted's, awareness, and I guess it's a universal truth.
Yeah.
Others will not respect you unless you respect yourself. It was profound.
Yeah.
And
Can I interrupt real quick on that? Because I've heard you say the trust, respect, humility. We talk about it. We're real about it, but joke about it too, because you're so passionate about it, and I love that about you. But I don't think I've ever, until right now, thought about it having the respect meaning for yourself.
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think, growing up, we all have, they would say gifts and wounds as a child, as a young college student, as a young professional. And I didn't necessarily consider myself, more academic. I did okay in high school and college, but really, studies were not my strength. There was, I think, things I needed to really address. I don't know if I necessarily even technically knew how to study correctly as a young student. So as you become a young adult, more in the wealth management industry, you can, have relationships based on positive energy and personality and, you might say humor. But there does come a point in time in a professional relationship where you need to bring content, you need to bring value to people's lives.
Yep.
I didn't have a belief in myself that I could do that. I didn't necessarily consider myself smart as a professional. So that was a journey of, for probably 3.5 years, taking tests, accreditation, these graduate level courses, and I'd taken one every 90 days for 3.5 years. Another friend that you and I know well, John, old mentor of both Brett and myself, he had said, Tim, just realize you going through that process, that is all for you, probably no one else.
That's good.
To get a professional designation, a professional degree, maybe an MBA, people study for advanced degrees. It's really for yourself to say, I'm valuable, I'm worth it, and to build that self-esteem, that self-worth.
So there was the respect,
that's
and the confidence builder right there.
That's right. And then it goes even, you would think, trust. Do I trust myself?
Yep.
And it grew over time, belief in myself, trusting myself. And then, humility. I think when you see the greatest athletes, you both talked about athletes today. I used to play tennis, and we've all played sports. Mike played collegiate baseball. Brett, collegiate golf. I played collegiate tennis. When you see, that's interesting. When you see some of the greatest athletes, they're unbelievably talented. They're unbelievably good. They don't need to state that they're good. Right. They don't need to have bravado. They don't need to be cocky. Some are, but the true greats, and even you see that in the professional sports industry today, their actions speak for themselves. They're humble. They don't need to overstate anything.
Yeah.
Right? So
go back on your first comment about, realizing you needed coaching and you spent 35% of your income on that. Like, what do you think it was in you that put you over the hump, so to speak? Because I know we'll have listeners that says they'll get to the point where, they need coaching and they need personal growth, they need this, and then they'll get to whatever that point of no return is, whether it's the time needed to do it or whether it's the financial output, and then they'll tap out and say, I don't really need it, I can figure it out. What was it in you that made that jump to say, no, I'm all in on this?
That's a very interesting question. There was a very distinct point in time, and I'll never forget it. I was driving to my old office as a young, financial advisor. Did not like the relationships I had at that time professionally. I wasn't feeling respected. I wasn't feeling trusted. I don't think I was necessarily being treated with humility. And as driving to work, it was 7:30. I've told the story before, 7:30 in the morning. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's a spring day. I think it was like May. And I had my windows down in my car. There's kids playing on the playground, getting ready to go to school. So it should be a fantastic day. I'm 27, 28 years old. I'm healthy. And I'm driving to work, and I have this terrible stress headache. It's 7:30 in the morning. And I ask myself, something's wrong. If you don't have joy, if you don't have peace, a calmness, if you're not thriving, I think everybody in their life can have an inflection point to where they would say, you might say, hit rock bottom, whether it's your health, your physical health, your emotional health, your professional health, relationships with friends, a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. You hit rock bottom. And I don't think until people make the decision to engage in change, right, the problem has to be that significant, because if not, you're going to keep going down the same path.
Yeah.
Until the pain is so great that you would do what you need to do, we probably won't change.
Yep.
Yep.
You can't force someone to change.
True. Very true. That's right.
Makes me think of my worst year financially was my second year in the business. My first year, I came in as a young 23-year-old, kid that happened to have a really, really good first year. Thought, it's pretty simple, right? It's not that difficult. And fell flat on my face my second year. Going into my third year, this wasn't a coach, but it was an assistant. And it was, again, I think the betting on yourself. It was bad enough that I needed to make massive change. And it was the same kind of thing, that 35, 45, 50% of my income I made the year before, I was going to pay another human being.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that my wife, I even was like, are you okay with this? And she's like, I believe in you, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, thank God that she believed in me, because I did that. I made that decision. So whether it's staff or a team member or a coach, it's like, just, man, make the investment believe in yourself, but then freaking go to work.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You got to go to work and show up every single day. It doesn't mean hire the person and it's just going to happen. You got to put in the effort, right? And that's what you did.
Mm-hmm. Can I make a quick comment about that? You mentioned your wife, getting your wife's feedback. All of us are married to amazing women, and that unconditional love and support from my wife, Amy, my spouse, or other people listening, their spouse, sometimes we can take that for granted, but when you look back and see how important that was, they believe in us, right? And then if you have children or if you have relatives, right, that are relying on you, we will do things sometimes for others that we might not do for ourselves. Yeah. There's other key parts of my life to where my children have impacted me, right? So I don't think that can go, understated, that unconditional love and support of our spouses.
Well, I think I can see the moment we were in our master bedroom. I was kind of walking out of the room to go to work for the day, and she was walking in towards our closet, and she's got her belly. She's 8 months pregnant with our fourth child, right? We're living in our new home that we had just built, and you and I were getting ready to start Visionary Wealth Advisors, and her looking at me and being like, is this the right time?
Yeah.
And I said, no, it's not, but we're going to do it.
That's right.
And she's like, okay, enjoy your day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank God. Thank God. Thank you, babe. What's the painful truth about growth that most people are avoiding, do you think? It's for either one of you if you've got a thought on that.
Boy, I guess I would, it's kind of like a pat answer, I guess, but it's probably the fear of change. Most people are afraid of change. And I think if we have this real growth mindset and this mindset of that my future is really greater than my past, well, in order for you to move from where you're at right now to wherever your future is going to be better, it's going to require change. But I think this word change in most of our lives is this negative, fearful thing. And if we embrace that change and know that in order for us to carry out whatever we're supposed to be doing and whatever level of growth or level of success that looks like, it's going to require change. Right? That's why when I talked about like risk for myself, like now I'm not going to go out and do a bunch of stupid stuff, even though Tim might try to talk me into it. Right? That's not what I'm talking about. Right. But I'm talking about, hey, what can I do today a little bit different or a little bit better that's going to make me just one little point better than I was the day before, and keep stacking wins, keep stacking days, knowing that change is going to turn into something great that I'm not going to be able to get there unless that change is happening.
That's great. Change is a great answer. When I was thinking about that question last night doing my preparation, I was thinking about pride and ego as well, right? Especially for men, right? It's like, I don't need it. I mean, I remember in 2007 when I hired a coach, like I didn't tell anybody for a while. Because you want to have this like, I got it, man. Like, I don't need help, right? But it's like, no, I do need help. And I need to think differently and go off somebody else that's been there before me and learn from them and get there quicker, right? So I think sometimes as men, we can be very prideful and our ego can get in the way. It's like, I don't need it, right? I'm good, right?
I think what goes hand in hand with that is, I would say, is awareness and acceptance. Because until I understand that maybe there's something that needs to change, or a problem or a deficiency, a weakness, I need to get the awareness first. And then probably 90% of the issue is I need to accept that. Tim, you need to change this. You have a problem with this, right? There's a deficiency or a skill set that's broken or doesn't work. And until I truly accept that, then I can't change. Yeah. And then the fear of the unknown, well, what's it going to look like? I'm fascinated when you see people who might have a behavior, a trait, some deficiency, and they will hold on to it. You'd say like the analogy, like an anvil going to the bottom of the ocean, and it's drowning them, and they're dying from it. But they refuse to accept it and then release it, or release that old pattern of behavior, and it sometimes literally, but it can kill them.
Yeah. And I think too, like, and this is just my opinion, but it's based on years of meeting with people and, sharing meals or coffee with people and listening to guys speak. But I think one of the major things of holding, especially men, back is they literally don't know what they want out of life. They don't know what they want. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and they don't even like the Joneses, right? But it's like
the Joneses
so one of my
suck.
So one of my very first questions is like, no, what do you want, right? You need to discover who you are and what you want out of life.
Yep.
And most people, they never get to the stage of life where they even think about that question, much less being able to answer it.
Yep. Yeah, I always say clarity precedes mastery,
Yeah.
right? And the clearer we can be on
good.
something, then that's when you're going to master it. But if we have no idea, it's like if I throw you my keys to the car and say, here, go.
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah.
Right. But if we already have it in the navigation, right, you know exactly where you're going.
That's right.
It's kind of like life.
Yeah.
Tim, talk about a time in your life where maybe you hit your personal ceiling, and what you did to break through the ceiling and then get to the next level, right, of where you wanted to go at in life.
I think the biggest example of that is when we created our firm.
Yep, that's exactly what I thought.
Visionary Wealth Advisors. We were at a prior firm. I was at this prior firm for about 22 years. Had worked with my consultant, worked with my coach, had a professional change, and it was very successful. I was getting great results. But at that time, as I identified values, there was a values conflict of what I wanted to do with my career versus where I was at. And, it was very key to say, like you had said, you talked to your wife. I spoke with my wife at that time. I think we're going to make a career change to start a new firm. And like you, my wife was thinking maybe this is 1 or 2 or 3 years in the future. It's going to be a slow process. We're going to change. And she said, well, when are you thinking of doing this? And I said, probably about 6 weeks. You could have heard a pin drop.
Right.
But again, for me, it went back to those values, because for me, no matter what level of success it is, if the values are not being met or fulfilled or honored, any kind of, you might say, money or prestige or recognition, it's just not worth it for me.
Yeah.
And then we had
Yep.
a very meaningful values connection with you and I being business partners.
Yep.
And I knew, well, we got to take a leap. And my wife even, similar to what you had said, can we guarantee that this is going to be successful? And I said, no, absolutely not. But I said, I would rather fail trying to uphold values than stay in the old paradigm, having values compromised.
Solid. So solid. Mike, talk about, so you were at Anheuser-Busch for how many years?
15.
15 years at AB. You saw some of the biggest, highest performance cultures you could see, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the best beer business in the world at the time. What was the single habit you think you saw the most that separated the quote unquote normal folks from the men and women that rose to the top?
Yeah. Boy, great question. There were probably lots of little nuances, that are separators for people. But I would just say in that culture and in that industry, I would say the things that really separated those high performers was just a passion for a level of excellence that went beyond circumstances or situations. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That man or that woman was going to perform at a high level, was going to give his or her best, no matter what the project was, what the day was, what they thought the stakes were in that market or beer brand or whatever it was, that there was just this consistency in their approach and their passion of the way they attacked the day, they attacked their lives, that didn't really change. There were no days off, so to speak. And I don't mean that wasn't like perfection, right? These weren't perfect people. So it's okay to have a down day, but it's kind of like Mike Tyson says, right? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Well, much of life happens when you don't expect it. So when you have a bad day at work or a bad meeting, what are you going to do? Don't compound it with another bad day or bad meeting, come back, stand up, and go to work. And I think it was that type of diligence from those people day after day that really stuck out. Yeah, for them.
And I think too, to compound on what you're saying, is that you got to show up even to the point of the days that you don't want to do it, or you're not having a standout day. You still got to show up.
That's right.
And the ones that do well, they show up.
Yeah.
They're boringly consistent day in and day out.
That's right. And it sounds, you say it's boringly consistent, and it's true. And it sounds real boring, right?
Yeah.
But like we're talking about, that was 15 years ago, right? So you think of those things now that we just described, nowadays, it's kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. And it's like I tell my kids who are now entering the workforce, hey, if you just do some of these things, if you just show up and give it your best, just by doing that, you're way ahead of the ranks of the other people. That's just the way it is right now.
It's so funny because I love watching, skilled athletes play their sport. Brett, you're a very good golfer. You watch great tennis players. You see these Olympic athletes, and in fact, we're getting ready for the Winter Olympics coming up just in a few weeks. If it's a speed skater, if it's a bobsled, whatever that activity is, you're right, 300 and maybe 63 days a year, they're practicing dark days, cold days, rainy days, hot days. Nobody's watching.
Yep.
And they're doing the same routine and the same movement over and over and over again. And then maybe when they participate in their sport, if they're a sprinter, it's a 10 or 12 or 15 second sprint, right? That consistency part, I will also say what goes hand in hand with that is a person's pain threshold and complexity threshold.
Yeah.
If you can, and delayed gratification, they would say.
Yep.
If you can ask somebody, what's your pain threshold? Pretty high. Are you okay with delayed gratification? Yep. Can you be consistent? Yep. And they will do it over and over again. Again, for golfing, I believe. You can go to the golfing driving range, hit 500 golf balls. A good buddy of yours, Derek, I think one of your closest friends, practicing putting on a golf green in his house every night for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
No one's watching him in his basement putting. Right. But what everybody's attracted to is that when you see that person perform in front of, maybe thousands of people or millions of people on TV, or with your friends, and you're playing the sport and you're fantastic at it, you're phenomenal at it. Everybody's like, well, how did you do that? Well, you didn't see the guy the last 11 months and 2 weeks. He's only playing golf with you on a 2-week golf trip.
Right.
What he did the prior year.
There's no such thing as an overnight success, right?
No.
Derek, don't let that go to your head that he's talking about your damn freaking golf game.
Love you, Derek.
Podcast. That's
good job,
terrible.
buddy. Make sure you beat him.
I think of Dawn Harper Nelson back here. You see this picture, and she's been on the
That's
podcast a couple times. A great woman, and we talked about this in the podcast. Was 4 years of work, and each race of hers was 14. I think it's written up there. 12.37 seconds.
12 seconds.
12 seconds
For 4 years.
For 4 years
worth of work.
Now she had 3 heats or whatever it was, right? So what is it, 36 seconds? But 36 seconds.
It's amazing to think about things like that in that context, isn't it?
Yes.
It's crazy.
She's like, family events and social events and ice cream and pizzas and fun for 36 seconds for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. No.
I couldn't do it.
Most people can.
No.
Do you, either one of you, have a ritual that you do? Like, I have Sunday planning that helps me get prepared for, I was thinking about this talk today on Sunday, right? Do you have something, if I followed you around, that I would see weekly that makes Friday more predictable?
I do. Yeah, I
Let's
do.
hear it.
I'm a creature of habit. Well, they say your life is dictated by your habits.
Yeah.
So as I get older, things that are so important to me is faith, health, family, obviously our professional world. So, if you were to follow me around throughout the week or prepping for the upcoming work week, everybody in my family knows this. They probably would giggle at this. I prepare my food every Sunday night, for the entire week. And it's
a little
because I know he's yeah.
A little lunch box
or whatever. It does.
What are you, 12?
Well,
so
here's
squirrel, or are you having lunch? What are you doing?
Here's the reason: short, bald guys don't look good out of shape and overweight, right? So you got to work your tail off to make sure that doesn't happen. So food intake, right? My food intake. So for your health, what am I eating? For every morning, reflection time, prayer time, first thing when you get up. 10, 15 minutes.
Where do you do that at?
I just do it we got a sitting room, basically like a hearth room in the house.
Yep.
And you go to the same chair, and you can have your time. And they would say, some would call it the classroom of silence. Mm-hmm. For me, it's prayer time. Every day, not necessarily... it's not the most exciting thing. Some would maybe call that boring, but for me, it grounds me. Mm-hmm. For my work routine, again, people would laugh at this. I have a notepad, and every day I will write down. He's laughing.
He will write. He writes down his task, but you know what? He's very particular about how he scratches it off.
Yeah.
So you know what I do sometimes? I'll take his pencil when he's not around, and I'll scratch it off in a really bad way just to screw his whole piece of paper.
Yeah, he can't handle it. He's the greatest note taker in the world.
He is.
Right? When there's no more paper and there's no more pens or pencils, he's still going to be taking a manual note. Like, would you hurry up, old man, and make that note? Because I ain't got all day.
AI's listening to it. We're going to give you 14 pages of notes. But nope.
I mean, it's so funny because it is so true. So I'll make my notes of a to-do list, a task for the day, and I know if I do my goal planning at the beginning of the year, if I break those down into monthly, weekly, daily tasks, it's going to get done. And then you're right. After I do the task, I'll cross it off in a very specific way to make sure I can cleanly know that I got it done.
You might need to hire a coach to help you with those problems.
With those OCD. That's it, Tim. For those listening, that's called OCD. But that's it. And then again, at nighttime, spend time with family.
Love it. It makes me think of, and we talk about this a lot too, but for people listening, is joy in work. Right, I think so many people can get so serious, and we got to do this, and it's got as little as it is, but just goofing off and scratching on your piece of paper, man. It's like just have some fun at work, right? And
lightheartedness, man. They'd say a different person that gave me some coaching advice. Lightheartedness, levity. They would say laughter. I think. I think the great Jimmy V would say that, right? We need to cry every day. We need to laugh every day. Mm-hmm. In his famous speech. And if you don't laugh every day, why are we doing it?
You only got one chance at this life. You might as well make the best of it.
That's it.
Right?
That's right.
Any habits or rituals for you?
Like I said, I'm a pretty boring guy. It would be the same thing. I do the same thing every morning. I get up, I grab my coffee, and then I'll go sit down and I'll pray and read my Bible. And that's basically the start of every single day, right? I'm not a journaler. That's just not how I roll. Maybe I should, but I don't. And I don't take a whole lot of notes like the hammer over here. But I'm more. I get up, I pray, read my Bible, maybe do a little bit of Bible study, and then I'm good to go for the day.
Love it. What's and this is for either one of you, but what's a belief that maybe you had earlier in your career, and you had it for a while, but you've now found, knowing what you know now, that belief that you were hell bent on it years ago maybe is not true any longer. Do you have anything that comes to mind there?
Like a personal belief, or
just a belief that helped you be successful early on, that you thought it was going to help you be successful, but you found out it really wasn't?
I know what mine would be.
Let's hear it.
Very simple. Is that money and materialism will not make you happy.
Yeah.
As you're young, as a young professional, maybe prior to getting married, it's exciting to maybe get your first nice car as a young graduate out of college, and then maybe you get your first home, maybe you get married, maybe you have children, constantly doing things for your family. Absolutely. It's a very noble thing to provide for your family. But then that looking for the next level, that next watermark, that next benchmark, And once I reach that, that's going to make me happy.
Yeah.
Whether it's a certain amount of income, a certain amount of money in your savings account, any of those kinds of things. So today, when it comes full circle, I say this to people all the time. You sound so old as we age. You sound, it's very cliche. Your families and your health, your family and friends' health, and your friendships and relationships, your spouse, your children. That's it.
Yeah, that's so true.
That is
so
it.
True.
I have an exercise coach, and he had a great quote. He had said, people who are healthy will want for hundreds of things on their wish list. People who are unhealthy only want one thing.
Yeah.
To be healthy. So that's just a belief that I think has changed for me over the years.
So what do you? Because there's people out there, and I hear those same things, and I 100% agree with you. But what do you say to the person that says, "Well, yeah, but you've already got the nice stuff, right? You've already got the material stuff, right?" So I push back on that sometimes with people. It's like, well, no shit, like, because you've already got the nice stuff, so it's not about the material side. But because that is can be a driver early on in your career.
Yes.
Right. And I think, and I'll be vulnerable. For me, it was a driver early on. Mm-hmm. It has changed. So that's a belief of mine that has changed. That's a different driver. It's more about impact and the future grading your past and all that stuff. So, and I'm expecting an answer for that. I just think it's something to at least be aware of. It's okay for that to be a driver, maybe especially early on, but once you've got it, there's got to be more.
I don't disagree at all, because again, there's a practical side of life too. Life is not cheap, and if a person does have a meaningful relationship, whether again it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, wife, children, whatever they're doing to serve others, I think where I've tried to reconcile that is, if you can be growth driven, living within your value system, where I think people could potentially make an error or a mistake is if the growth mentality is at all costs and they violate those values, and maybe they lose a best friend, right? Meaning emotionally, that they're not best friends with that person anymore. Maybe they lose their marriage. Maybe they lose their integrity or their professional morality. They lose the relationship with their children, chasing that next thing. That's where I think they can be mutually inclusive. I think you can be growth driven and you can have great earthly success.
Yeah, for sure.
Within your values.
You can have both, yeah. And I think what happens is, like, too, there's seasons of life, like you referred to, right? There's times in your career, people's career, where, in this season of life, you should probably be concentrating on providing financially for your family. Right. And then you're going to get out of that season, and there's going to be other metrics that need to be more important to you. And again, I'll probably die on this hill, but I think this is where, like, as a person, you need to know what you want out of life and how you're going to get there. Yep. And there's seasons, those change, right? Those change depending on the timing and the season of your life and your family's life, and it's okay for those things to change.
Yep. How do you guys manage your energy throughout the day? I mean, you got a lot of stuff coming at you. You're getting up early in the morning, doing stuff all day long, family commitments at night. Like, how do you manage that? Because my experience with both of you, and I think I'm this way too, when I'm around you, whether it's at 7:30 in the morning or at noon or at 8 p.m., that energy is still there, right? So how do you do that?
That's a great question. I would say that morning routine that I have, that I get up, grab my coffee, pray, read my Bible, like, I would say that right there for me, because I'm try to be as self-aware as I can, for me, that extends my energy for the day. If I miss out on that time, that energy wanes. And I think it's also knowing yourself. There's days or maybe evenings where you just need to check out and tap out and, re-energize and know what those are, because you're right. We'll all go pretty hard throughout the day, but then when I'm home, like at night, I'm kind of like, I can only take in so much. I'll have to tell my wife sometimes, like, I have no more answers today. Right. I'm like, I was trying to listen to what you said, but sorry, baby, one in ear and out the other.
That's good communication.
Yeah. Well, good. I hope she'd say that.
I'd say for me, it's the most important start is the time I get out of bed. They'll say the golden hours in the morning.
Yeah.
Because then that allows me to get exercise in. I try to exercise, 4 or 5 days a week. And then if we're eating good food, your physical health, prayer time, spiritual health. So for me, it's really about the time I set my alarm. Because if I am late, you sleep in. Sometimes it's great to sleep in, and you can, relax and kind of recharge your batteries. But on a normal work day, for me, it's about the time I get up. And it's those golden hours because the day just starts to compound correctly. And let's even role play backwards. If I don't get up on time or early, if I don't exercise, if I don't, maybe have some good food to eat and have food prepared for the day, it just starts to spiral.
Yeah. I mean, the disciplines of life, those very simple disciplines, they're just so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just are.
They're not even hard to understand.
No.
It's just so rare. And we've talked about, we all have children. And if I think as we speak with our kids, you can just give them a simple rule book, right? Exercise.
Yeah.
Show up on time, right? Be respectful. Be a hard worker. You might not be the smartest person. You might not be the most well-connected person. Your personality or communication skills. That's kind of the story of my life, right? It's a marathon.
That's right.
And you can just outlast them.
Yep.
It's awesome. From the consulting side, so people obviously could work with us. We do consulting for clients, and so whether it's us or somebody else, what do you think, and what's your wish for those people to get out of it?
For me, my hope for all people in that situation is that they understand that they have this awesome opportunity in life, and they have great gifts and great skills and great abilities inside of them. And I talk to guys all the time, and they have no idea, to steal a word from Tim, that they have this unique brilliance that they don't even understand that they have. And I think having a coach ask some simple questions based on just listening to what that man or woman is saying can unlock things in their life that and in their mind and their spirit that have been in there for years, that have just yearning to get out. And just your guys' tagline of the future is greater than your past is it's so true. Every time I hear that, I'm like, yeah, that's right. And it's not just for me, that's for everybody. Right? I mean, that's just, and I think there's so many opportunities for people to walk into things that they've never dreamed of, whether it's professionally, whether it's in their health, whether it's in their family. It sounds so good to be true, but it's not. It's we all have it. It can be real possibilities with some hard work, some dedication, and surrounding yourself with a team of people to help support you and get you where you should be.
I always talk about the treadmill of life.
Yeah.
It's like we get on the treadmill and then we just go. You get up, you do your thing, you go to work, you go home, you go to 2 or 3 baseball games or basketball games, you eat some food, you go to bed, and you just keep going.
Yeah.
I think our job, whether it's our wealth management clients or our consulting clients, picking a human being up, taking them off the treadmill for 1 hour, and saying, Mike, where are you going? Right? Whatever the questions are, and I think that's the biggest thing for me. Yeah. That's what I've found with people is to truly hit the home run in life. You've got to get off the hamster wheel.
That's right. Yeah.
And make an impact in your own life. Because if you can't do it for yourself, then how are you going to do it for anybody else?
You're not. It's impossible.
Right? It's impossible.
Mark Twain has this great quote. He always says there's the 2 most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you found out why.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I've added a third to that. And the third one that people need is the third most important day of your life is the day you decide to do something about those first 2 things. Because if you don't ever do something about it, those 2 days aren't really as important as what they should be or could be.
Yep. Amen to that. Rapid fire for you guys. Book. You have a book you'd recommend?
The Bible.
I might have to steal
You ever hear this? You're going to go up and have your conversation, and he's going to say, did you read my book? And he's going to be like, ooh, did you read the Bible or not? He's like, I only have 1 book.
Yeah.
You didn't read my 1 book? Yeah. Sorry,
well,
go ahead.
Because
the Bible.
This guy, last year, he had an accountability kind of challenge, you might say, an idea for me, to read the Bible in a year. You've seen there's programs, there's podcasts, and websites that you can have schedules to read the Bible in a year. So in 2025, I did it, and it wasn't easy. I literally had to do it every day because it's a pretty big book.
Pretty big book.
A lot of stuff in there.
Pretty big book.
A few stories in there, a few chapters.
Especially when you're a slow reader.
Yeah. And not a really smart reader. I'd say that one. It's hard because there's a whole series of books. I probably remember something that I've read most recently. Great ones on marriage, great ones on psychology, what we're thinking. But I'm going to go with the standard one first. Very cliche, but I did do it.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a real big deal.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Last few questions here. Your dream vacation. Where are you going?
Somewhere with a beach.
Somewhere with a beach.
Yeah, I'm a beach guy. I like to just sit there and stare out the waves. And my wife always says, "You going to read a book?" I'm like, "Nope." She's like, "What?" She's like, "What are you thinking about?" Nothing.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I had my first experience walking on the beach, and literally it was so cold that my feet were numb. We were barefoot. I had on, pants,
yes,
sweatshirts, heated vest, stocking cap, and numb feet.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to walk on the
cold.
beach. Tim?
I would say I'd like to go to Italy.
Well, it was
and then
mine.
I would like to maybe go to Monaco. So as an age, I'd said, things that are important in your life, your health of your families, and your loved ones, and your friendships, those relationships. And then I think the other one is to see the world, right? Experiences.
See, this is the difference right here. This is Mr. Adventure over. He's going to answer that question about 842 ways. I'm going to answer it the same way every time. Beach. I'm the boring guy.
And now there's a lot to be said for that. But you could go to the beach in Monaco.
I could, I guess.
You could.
Yeah.
You go to the beach in Europe. What about yours?
You knew my thing about not flying for 8 years. I'm back on the bird for about 4 years, and it's been great. And so my heart is opening up to Italy. We're literally just this weekend, my wife and I were looking at that. It's our 25th wedding anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
So we're debating on where we go. So we have to go to Italy. That's where I want to go.
I think that would be fantastic.
It's finally in my brain that I can do it, that I can accomplish this long flight over some water, and
you can do it.
Because there's so many places in the world you want to see, or that I want to see.
That's right.
But fear, which we talked about, right? Yeah. False evidence is appearing real. Fear has held me back, and so now it's if I'm here talking all the time about getting out of your comfort zone, this comfort zone callus, probably need to take my own medicine, right? So that's where I think I'm going to go. Last two things I want you to talk about is, my passion is Swing for Hope, right? We give money back to families and Siteman Cancer Center here in St. Louis, but also to families who've been hit with the word cancer. We want to help them with bills that they have, any local families. Brag a little bit about the things that you guys are most passionate about, where you're making an impact in the charitable world.
Well, I'm actually on the board of an organization called Crisis Aid International, which is a local humanitarian aid organization over in St. Louis, started by a mentor of mine, Pat Bradley, and his wife, Sue. I've been on the board there for probably 10 years, and basically what we do there is just provide humanitarian aid all over the world to children who are starving, families who are starving. We have hospitals, girls' homes for girls that are rescued out of sex trafficking in East Africa and also here in the United States. So my wife and I contribute a lot there, and they do a great work to people that are in desperate need, and that's big on my heart. Also, board member of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which kind of with my sports and faith background, that's like the perfect fit for me, because there's been so many of life lessons and spiritual lessons really that I've learned on a ball field or a basketball court, and that's just kind of my way of pouring back to the men that poured into me when I was young, and foundational skills to me. So that's a couple of organizations that are important to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mine would be Casting for Hope. I took a chapter out of your playbook. for the theme. So I love fishing, and so the concept of casting a fishing rod or a fishing pole, casting for hope. So we benefit children in Uganda, Africa. I traveled there back in 2018 for the first time. You fall in love with these children. I've said they're the happiest kids maybe I've ever met. No entitlement, obviously, no victimhood. They truly just want to have joy and an education.
Yeah.
So we will provide scholarships to college students or university students in Uganda. And then we're also opening up a vocational institute to train young men and women for life skills, job skills. Not everybody necessarily needs to go to college. And so we're going to open up that, and it's pretty exciting. I'm going to be getting on an airplane in 3 weeks to fly there.
That's awesome.
And see the students.
It's awesome. Well, thank you guys for the impact you make in the community and for the business leaders. And it's been awesome having you guys on the Circuit of Success. And couldn't be more thankful, man, for your friendship and leadership. We're very blessed to get to show up every day and get to see and work together. So thank you guys.
Yep. Good to be with you guys.
Be good.